Hey everyone, I'm Kim Hunter. Welcome back. This is Cell Day 6. Before we get started, let's talk about our favorite flavor of ice cream. I want to say mine's chocolate. It's kind of hard to choose just one though. There are so many good flavors. All right, so today you've got two assignments. One is the Kami chart. You're going to fill that out while this presentation is going on, and then afterward you've got a vocabulary cells video and quiz. All right, so the warm up. Why don't you take some time, pause it, and then we can discuss. All right, so number one, prior to an investigation on the human body, students predict how new cells are created. According to the cell theory, which student's prediction is correct? Let's look at A. Humans are born with all the cells they will ever need. That is not correct. Cells do grow, cells do divide, which means they like copy and paste themselves. All right, so B, new cells are created from nutrients in the food we eat, such as calcium. No, cells don't come from nutrients. Cells come from pre-existing cells. So that is the answer is C. Number two, cells have the ability to undergo photosynthesis, work independently of other cells, form new cells, direct an organism's activity. All right, so not all cells undergo photosynthesis. Not all cells will work independently. A lot of them will group together to do specialized functions. But they all have the ability to form new cells. That again is part of the cell theory, and it's actually tied into question number one. All right, so number three, which process is not a similar function of all cells? It is photosynthesis. Not all cells do photosynthesis. Only plant and algae cells. Well, what is photosynthesis? It's where plants take in the sun's energy. They absorb water and carbon dioxide, and they convert it to glucose and oxygen. All right, so we talked about the difference between prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Remember, prokaryotes, pro rhymes with no, so they are not going to have membrane-bound organelles. U rhymes with do, so eukaryotes do have membrane-bound organelles. So today your learning target is to know the parts of a cell. You'll be able to diagram it, hopefully. All right, so cell membrane is the barrier between the outside of the cell and the cell's internal environment. So when you think about this, your house or apartment, they all have something that protects them from the outside environment. But they have like doors and windows, which will allow regulate the things that come and go in. If you have your windows open, you're allowing that outside fresh air to circulate throughout your house. So the cell membrane allows for things to come and go. All right. So the nucleus is going to be like this little bouncy ball right there. It almost looks like an olive. The nucleus, it stores DNA. What is DNA? Well, DNA is the genetic material that contains information needed for cells' processes. So some of this DNA provides the recipe to make proteins, but it doesn't actually make the proteins. So the DNA, some of the DNA is like a recipe book. It helps make proteins. Why are proteins important? Proteins perform most actions and chemical reactions in the cell. So who makes their proteins? If the DNA codes for them, who's going to make them? The ribosomes. The ribosomes are this little group right here. They are the smallest organelle, and they make the proteins. They're going to be like the kitchen. the mitochondrion. It always looks kind of like a little weird football. It's down here. And the cell gets energy by breaking down food using a process called cellular respiration. So the mitochondria, the key term here is energy and cellular respiration. So cellular respiration, what is that? That's a fancy way of saying that it uses oxygen. Remember, we breathe in oxygen. We use this oxygen too. So you could think of our respiratory system takes in oxygen. The mitochondrion, the cellular respiration, and it uses oxygen too. And it releases energy through cellular respiration. Endoplasmic reticulum. All right, so there are two types of endoplasmic reticulum, but what do? They transport things. They move the proteins along. So it's like the highway, your road. How do you get to the grocery store to your house and back? How do you go to school? Mostly roads. All right, so there are two different types, like I said. This is the smooth ER, and this is the rough ER. The rough ER does have ribosomes attached to it. That's what makes it rough. So that's pretty convenient when you got the ribosomes making proteins and the endoplasmic reticulum transporting them right there. All right, the cell wall. Only plants have this second line, this very outside line, and it provides support and protection to the plant. Why don't humans have a cell wall? Why don't we have cell walls lining our cells? Because we have something internally that helps provide support for us. Can you think of what that is? It's our bones, our skeletal system. All right, chloroplast. Only plants have this. On this diagram, it looks like a little pizza. Yum, I like pizza. All right, so the chloroplast is where photosynthesis occurs. Remember we talked about what is photosynthesis? It is where the plants take in sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water and make glucose and oxygen. Chloroplasts do contain chlorophyll. That makes them green. Okay, vacuole. It stores materials. Plants will have a large central vacuole. So it is this little, it almost looks like a piece of bread on this diagram. All right, so it stores water, food. Animals' cells do have smaller ones, but plant cells, it almost takes up, a good portion of the cell. So what happens when the vacuole isn't full? It will cause, instead of the plants going straight up, it'll start to wilt. That's because the vacuoles aren't pushing the outside of the cell. All right, cytoplasm is that jelly-like substance that supports the organelles. So it also helps aid in a little bit of movement of organelles around the cell, but it helps hold those organelles in place. The cytoskeleton are these little rod-shaped things right here, and it helps provide the cell shape. The Golgi apparatus, it almost looks like a endoplasmic reticulum down here at the bottom, but it is the Golgi apparatus. And what it does is it packages those proteins. It's like our post office. All right, so don't forget about, complete this, mark it as done after you turn it in, and then take the vocabulary quiz. So let's look at these 3 questions for the essay ticket. If you'll pause it, give yourself time to read it and answer the questions. And now let's go over them. All right, so number 1, is there any form of life smaller than a plant cell? No. Cells are the smallest unit of life. Number 2, what does the cytoplasm do? The cytoplasm helps move those organelles. The cytoplasm supports the organelles. It kind of holds them in place, and it does help move them around a little bit. All right, so what is the cell membrane and what is its function? We talked about the cell membrane being sort of like the outside walls of your house, where it protects against the outside elements, and but it does have some pass-throughs to let some things in and out of your house. All right, so y'all have a great day. Thanks.